Joseph Ratzinger, who became Pope Benedict XVI, he was one of the sharpest theological minds of the last 100 years. His writings are massive, his ideas are deep and complex. So our challenge here is to try and boil all of that down into a simple, understandable map. The big question is, how do you even begin to map a mind that vast? Let's find out. Seriously, how do you map a mind like that? Where would you even start? Well, we're going to give it a shot. We're going to try and navigate his entire intellectual world using just 7 key words as our guideposts. And this isn't just going to be a random list. Think of it as a journey right to the heart of his thinking. So here's our roadmap for this journey. We're going to look at 4 big areas that really build on one another. First, we'll start with 2 ideas that are the foundation for everything else: love and reason. Then, we'll see how those ideas shape a worldview through creation and adoration. After that, we'll find the absolute center of the map, in Jesus Christ. And we'll wrap it all up with what he thought was maybe the most powerful argument of all: beauty. Okay, let's dive right in with what was, without a doubt, the most difficult and painful topic of his entire time as Pope. And we're starting here because the way he responded intellectually, it shows you everything. It really reveals the foundation of how he thought. It all comes down to 2 words: love and reason. A journalist once asked him if he thought there was some big conspiracy against the church when it came to the abuse scandal. And this was his answer: no finger pointing, no excuses. He said the problem was the sin inside the church. And this kind of brutal honesty was so powerful that even agnostics who heard him say it were convinced of his integrity. He knew that the only way forward was to clean house. But his response wasn't just about new rules and procedures. It was deeply intellectual. And this gets us to our very first word: love. In his first big letter as Pope, Deus Caritas Est, which means God is love, he basically diagnosed the root of the problem as a crisis of love, a complete failure to understand what love is really all about. He breaks this down by looking at 2 kinds of love. First, there's eros. This is human love, the ascending, possessive kind. That intoxicating feeling when you're falling for someone. But then there's agape. This is divine love. It's self-giving, it descends. Now, he argued that eros isn't bad, not at all. It's just incomplete. It needs to be purified. Think of it like gold in a crucible. You have to burn away all the selfishness and possessiveness to get to the pure stuff, the agape, where you truly just want what's best for the other person. Now, this whole process of purification can't happen in a vacuum. It needs a partner. And that brings us to our second key word: reason. For Ratzinger, this was absolutely crucial. Faith without reason can become really dangerous. But, and this is just as important, reason without faith can become just as dangerous. They need each other to stay healthy. Look at it this way. Religion, when it's left all by itself, can get sick and turn into fanaticism or fundamentalism. It needs reason to keep it grounded in reality. But then you have reason, and when it's left all by itself, it gets its own sicknesses. I mean, what could be more rational in a cold, calculating way than Auschwitz or Hiroshima? Reason desperately needs faith, a moral compass to stop it from becoming monstrous. It's a 2-way street, a mutual purification. All right, so with this purified idea of love and reason as our base, how did Ratzinger see our relationship to the world, to everything around us? Let's move into our next section and see how this all builds into a complete worldview through the ideas of creation and adoration. And that leads us right into our third word: creation. Way before it became a huge focus for Pope Francis, Benedict was talking about a kind of intellectual ecology. He argued that the universe isn't just some random, chaotic accident. It has an intelligence built into it, a logic. The ancient Greeks had a word for this: logos. And he believed this logic comes from a creator reason. He actually saw this logos working on 3 different levels. It's pretty cool. First, you have the divine logos. That's the mind of the creator itself. Second, that divine logos leaves its fingerprint, its own logic in creation. It's the order you see in nature. And third, we have our own human logos, our reason, which is perfectly tuned to recognize and understand the logic out there in the world. It's this incredible connection between our own minds and the mind of the universe. So, if the world is this amazing, intelligible creation, what are we supposed to do about it? What's our proper response? Well, that brings us to our fourth word: adoration. For Ratzinger, real, lasting change in the world doesn't start with running around frantically. It doesn't start with activism. It starts with being quiet. It starts with prayer.
There's this fantastic story that just nails this point perfectly. Picture this. Mother Teresa's nuns, the missionaries of charity, are at their absolute breaking point. They are completely burned out, totally exhausted from their work. They go to her and say, "We just can't keep up. There aren't enough hours in the day."
Now, her solution was, well, it was completely counterintuitive. She didn't suggest a better schedule. She didn't tell them to just try harder. She told them to add another half hour of prayer, of adoration, to their daily routine. And get this, the result was incredible. More women came to join their order, and they actually found they were able to get more work done, not less. For Ratzinger, this is the paradox, the logic of faith. All action has to flow from adoration. Okay, so we have love and reason as our foundation. We have creation and adoration as our worldview. But all of these ideas, they're not just separate points. They all point toward a single unifying center. This is the absolute core of Ratzinger's entire map. And that center is our fifth and sixth words. Together, Jesus Christ and the Church. You know, even with all his ditties as Pope, the one project that was most personal to him was his 3-volume book, Jesus of Nazareth. He felt it was his #1 obligation to present a picture of Jesus that was rooted in both faith and historical reason. Because for him, everything, all of history, love, the logic of the universe, it all revolves around this one person.
So where does the church fit into all this? Well, the early church fathers used this really beautiful analogy that Ratzinger absolutely loved. Christ is the sun, the source of all light, all warmth, all life. And the church? The church is the moon. It has no light of its own. It simply reflects the light of the sun. And yeah, sometimes it reflects it pretty dimly.
A journalist once asked Cardinal Ratzinger, back when he was in charge of dealing with all the messes in the church, a really pointed question. He asked, "Do you sleep well at night?" And his answer tells you everything you need to know about his faith. He said, "I sleep soundly because I know the church belongs to Jesus Christ and not to us." What a statement of profound trust. And that brings us to the final word on our map. In a world that's so skeptical about claims of truth and arguments about morality, Ratzinger believed there was still one argument that could break through all the noise, the final and maybe most compelling testament of all. Our seventh and final word is beauty. Ratzinger, who loved Mozart his whole life, was absolutely convinced that the experience of beauty, the kind you find in great art, in music, in the liturgy, and in the lives of the saints, was the most powerful and effective way to reach people in our time. He loved to tell this great historical story to make his point. Back in the 10th century, a guy named Prince Vladimir of Kiev decided he needed to pick a religion for his people. So he sent his envoys out to check out the world's great faiths. First, they went to Bulgaria and saw Islam. Their report back? Interesting. Then they traveled to Germany to see Western Catholicism. Their verdict? Better. And then, finally, they arrived in Constantinople. There, in the unbelievable Basilica of Hagia Sophia, they witnessed the Orthodox liturgy, the chanting, the icons, the incense. The sheer, overwhelming beauty of it all just left them stunned. Their final report to the prince was simple and powerful. We did not know whether we were in heaven or on earth. It wasn't a theological debate that won them over. It was an experience of pure beauty. And so here it is, our finished map. At the very heart of it all, Jesus Christ and the Church. The whole thing is built on a foundation of purified love and reason. This foundation gives us a worldview that sees the universe as a meaningful creation and responds to it with adoration. And finally, the argument that brings it all home, the most compelling proof, is beauty. And that leaves us with one final thought from Benedict's world. In our modern, cynical, skeptical age, where all the arguments about truth can just feel tired and worn out, maybe, just maybe, an encounter with profound, soul-shaking beauty is the most powerful argument we have left.